questions so far? I'm just telling y'all some of the ways that we are influenced today that are not godly. And that's why a lot of us can't go forward, because we are influenced by the negative things of this world. The next thing is culture influences, how we spend money. You know, culture influences how we spend our money, how our finances, how are our finances influenced? Well, they are influenced by our spending habits. Some of us got some really bad habits out here. Michael Kors came out with that pocketbook. Guess what? You got a few little women got the pocketbook, and next thing you know, they started, flaunting it around some of the poor women, and those poor women went spending their light bill money, their food money on these Michael Kors pocketbooks, and then they ended up going asking for assistance with paying bills and stuff. But then hold up, check this out. Not only were they influenced to buy them, but they were also influenced not to buy them. Some of the women were influenced not to buy them once they found out what Michael Kors had said about black people. Then we had some of them were fighting against it, so they were tied in between their spending habits, bad spending habits. Cultural influences, how we wear our hair, our makeup, and like I was saying, not all influences are positive at all. So I'm giving y'all some of the negative ones tonight so that you can kind of open your eyes up and see where I'm going with this. An example of how we spend our money and how we're influenced to spend is tax season. Everybody loves taxes, and, a majority of low-income families are going to get back a whole lot of money. Some of them anywhere from $8,000 to $9,000 back. But how will they spend their money? Because now they're influenced by these music videos, and they're influenced by some of the things that their friends have, where they go buy hair. What's the first thing everybody does when they get tax money? The first thing everybody does when they get tax money is they go and buy a car. If they don't have a car, they go get a car that they keep for about 2 months, and then it gets repoed. So how do you view your spending habits? When it comes down to your spending habits, who influenced you? Who has influenced your spending habits? And I'll give you another example of that. In my family, my mama always spent money. I mean, just always. That woman could spend, oh, my God, she could spend $10,000 quick. Quick as my daddy would bring it in, she would spend it. So she influenced some of the people in my family, some of my brothers and sisters, and my dad influenced some of us. Now, my dad was kind of like, he wasn't a real big spender, but if he needed to spend big on something that was necessary for the whole family, then he would. So how are you influenced today? Is your spending habits influenced by your parents, your friends, things that you see on TV? Are you a big spender or a tightwad? We have some people who are influenced not to even spend a dime because they was around some man. Oh, most of the men are like that. Some of the men are like that. They was around some man who was just tight with money. So when they grew up, guess what? They become tight with money, or some call it stingy. Some call it stingy. All right. So I'm going to read, let me see. Okay, hold up, y'all, just a minute. I know I missed a part in here because I was wanting to say it. I got to learn to write in order, y'all. Okay, so before I go into how to manage it, I got one more category for us to go into, and that is actually popularity. Popularity. People are influenced by popularity. And that's one thing that a lot of us want to be. We want to be in the in crowd. We want to be, with the people who we think are it, that we think are on top of the world, the people who we look up to. So we're influenced by popularity as well. And a good example of the popularity influence when it comes down to liking and social proof, I'm going to say Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson also goes in there with the money part too. Because when we look at Michael Jackson was popular all over the world. I mean, it ain't a country that you can name that he was not popular in. I mean, just a very popular pop star, artist, rock star, whoever you want to call him. He was popular. And everybody knew Michael Jackson. Everybody wanted to be like Michael Jackson. The problem was Michael Jackson had some issues going on in his life, and some of them were financial issues. But because Michael Jackson was so popular, nobody thought Michael could do wrong. Michael had a few charges, a molestation. Nobody thought Michael could do wrong. But people were influenced by him. They were influenced by his dancing. They was influenced by his style, even influenced by his hair. I remember when Michael Jackson in the 80s had the curly kid. Everybody wanted a curly kid to be like Michael Jackson. Even down to the church folk. You saw them in church with the curly kid hanging just like Michael Jackson and dripping. So Michael Jackson, he was one of those people who just had a big and great impact on the world, influence on him. But at the very end, while everybody thought Michael Jackson was doing good this, doing good that, what ended up happening, Michael Jackson, he was broke when he died. He was broke when he died. The money that was left here was off in insurance accounts and stuff like that, and, you know, coming off the royalties and stuff. But other than that, Michael Jackson would have to borrow money from people. Michael Jackson had to, he didn't pay his staff. He wasn't paying his bodyguards. He didn't have money to get places. He influenced culture a whole lot. He influenced people to love to dance and sing, but when it came down to the financial aspect of it, he just splurged, which caused a lot of people to go on splurging habits. And, you know, they probably broke too. If you really ask me, they probably broke, or either they recovered one. But we have to. The thing is, we just have to be careful who we allow to influence us. Although Michael Jackson was a good artist, he was not as good of a person to be like in real life. You know, that he was just music. He was an entertainer, and sometimes we can take things too far and not realize what's good for someone else may not be good for us. And so I'm going to read this scripture to y'all. Luke 9:25 says, and this is the NIV version. Luke 9:25 says, what good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? We got people that are losing themselves right now just because they wanted to be like somebody else, because they wanted to be liked, because they wanted to have that social status that other person may have. You know, people get mad. If you don't like their pictures, if you don't like their posts, they get mad about that, y'all. I'm telling you, the world is crazy now. And so what good is it for someone to gain the whole world? What good is it to have all this popularity, but you ain't got no peace of mind? You ain't got no joy inside. But you got all the money and stuff in the world, but you ain't got no feeling on the inside of you. You ain't got no wholeness to you. You ain't got no substance to you. You don't got no faith. What good is it for you to go out here and be like somebody else, making bad decisions, knowing that you're already in a bad place? Why would a woman that ain't hardly got no money go and buy a Michael Kors pocketbook knowing you got 3-4 kids back here that need to eat? But that's the type of world that we live in where common sense don't exist. It rarely exists because of these negative influences that are out here. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Let me read that again. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. In other words, if you are influenced by people who are doing bad things out here, you're going to reap the same thing that they are reaping. When I look at some of these people who are just never happy, never can't be happy for nobody, ain't happy for themselves, just never happy, can't congratulate nobody, can't thank nobody or nothing. And sometimes they're in cliques like that. They're in cliques now like that because one person out of the whole group can influence everybody else not to like somebody. One person can influence everybody else not to congratulate that person on their new job or even say, oh, your hair looks nice today. All right? So whenever you hang with people who are negative, that's what's going to happen. They're going to have a negative impact on your life no matter how good of a person you may be on the inside. If you are consistently hanging around people who are negative, eventually that negativity is going to rub right off on you. Eventually you're going to lose that identity and you're going to be acting just like some of the very same folks who you said you would never act like. You're going to be buying stuff just like some of the same folks that you said you would never be buying from. I bet half the people that said that they would not buy or go see the Black Panthers ended up going to that movie just because somebody was around them and said, hey, that's a good movie. And it was someone that they thought highly of, and that's why they went and saw the movie. Okay, Proverbs 29 and 23 says, pride brings a person low, but the lowly in spirit gain honor. Again, pride brings a person low, but the lowly in spirit gains honor. So what is the Bible talking about here? Pride. Prideful ways. We got some prideful people. Prideful ways. You know, pride always comes before destruction. Pride brings a person low. And I'm telling you, with prideful ways these days, that's part of an influence, part of a growing trend right there where people are so prideful. They can't help nobody unless their name in the newspaper. Unless they getting the credit for everything that they do, they can't do anything. You know, that's why a lot of our charity organizations do not last long. That's why a lot of nonprofit organizations have fallen, because of pride. Somebody wanted to be acknowledged for every little thing they did, and if their name or credit wasn't on it, then they didn't want to be part of it. But what ends up happening, though, what ends up happening is God has a way. He has a way that he can handle the prideful, but those that are on top eventually has to fall down whenever you're not doing things in a godly manner. Those who are last or at the back will eventually be first. So we got to be careful as women of God, God's children, that we are doing everything that we can to put out positive influences out here. We got to make sure that we know who we are at all times, that even if somebody of high authority would come and talk to us and tell us that, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, we will know that with God we can do all things. We would know that with God all things are possible. So how do you manage attitude like that when it comes down to liking and social proof? How do you get out of that phase of wanting to be always approved by people? Well, first of all, you got to sit down with yourself and make lifestyle changes. You don't lose weight by keep eating the same thing. You don't get well if you don't find medicine that makes you well or taking it. For every bad habit that you have out there right now, and the reason, and let me just explain this. The reason why I'm talking about this negative influence is because negative influence is stopping a lot of our women from becoming business owners. It's stopping a lot of our women from becoming productive mothers. because when we look at our children now, we have the mothers who are really young these days who still find the